Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the history of money, traveling back in time to one of the most powerful empires the world has ever known, ancient Rome. We'll explore how they built a sophisticated monetary system that fueled their expansion and, more importantly, uncover the surprising reasons why it all came crashing down. This isn't just a story about old coins, it's a timeless lesson about wealth, power, and the dangers of inflation that still resonates today. So, how did money work in ancient Rome? For centuries, the backbone of their economy was a beautiful silver coin called the denarius. First minted around 201 BC, the denarius was the Roman equivalent of a daily wage for a skilled laborer. It was trusted, stable, and contained nearly pure silver. Imagine holding one of these in your hand. It felt substantial, real. This stable currency facilitated trade across their vast empire, from the misty shores of Britain to the sandy dunes of Egypt. It paid the legions, funded massive construction projects like the Colosseum and aqueducts, and made merchants wealthy. The denarius wasn't just a coin, it was the symbol of Roman power and reliability. For a long time, the Roman financial system was the envy of the ancient world. But empires, especially vast ones, are incredibly expensive to maintain. Rome was constantly at war on its borders, which required a massive, well-paid army. Ambitious emperors wanted to leave their mark by building grand monuments and providing public welfare, like the famous bread and circuses, to keep the population happy. The problem was, by the time of Emperor Nero in the mid-1st century AD, the government's spending started to outpace its income. The gold and silver mines weren't producing enough new metal, and raising taxes on the citizens was deeply unpopular and could lead to revolts. The emperors were in a tight spot. They needed more money, but the traditional sources were drying up. Faced with this financial crisis, Emperor Nero came up with what seemed like a clever, almost invisible solution. He couldn't just create more silver out of thin air, so he did the next best thing. He started to debase the currency. He ordered the mints to reduce the amount of pure silver in each denarius, mixing it with cheaper metals like copper. So, a coin that was once nearly 100% silver was now only 90%. From the outside, the coin looked the same. The emperor could now mint more coins from the same amount of silver, allowing him to pay off his debts and fund his projects. It seemed like a perfect short-term fix. What could possibly go wrong? This process of debasement, once started, proved impossible to stop. Subsequent emperors, facing their own financial pressures, continued the trend. Over the next 2 centuries, the silver content of the denarius plummeted. By the reign of Emperor Septimius Severus around 200 AD, the coin was only about 50% silver. 100 years after that, during the crisis of the 3rd century, the denarius was basically a bronze coin with a thin silver wash that would rub off after just a little use. It was a ghost of its former self. The government was essentially creating money out of nothing, a process we now call inflation. So, what was the real-world impact of all this? At first, not much, but people aren't stupid. Merchants, soldiers, and everyday citizens started to notice that the new coins felt lighter and looked less shiny. They realized that the money they were being paid wasn't as valuable as it used to be. A merchant who used to sell a sack of wheat for 1 denarius now needed 2, then 3, then 10 to get the same amount of actual silver value. This is the classic definition of inflation. Prices for goods and services skyrocketed because the value of the money was collapsing. People started hoarding the older, purer silver coins, pulling them out of circulation, which only made the problem worse. This runaway inflation, or hyperinflation, had a devastating effect on Roman society. The economy spiraled into chaos. Imagine being a soldier on the frontier, getting paid in coins that were becoming worthless by the day. Your loyalty would vanish pretty quickly. People lost faith in the government and its money. Trade broke down because no one wanted to accept the debased currency. Many regions reverted to a primitive barter system, trading goods directly instead of using money. This economic collapse fueled political instability, contributing to a period known as the Crisis of the Third Century, where emperors were being assassinated and replaced with terrifying frequency. The empire was tearing itself apart from the inside out. Was there any attempt to fix this? Absolutely. Emperors like Aurelian and Diocletian tried to reform the currency. Diocletian, for example, introduced new, purer coins and even issued an edict on maximum prices in 301 AD, trying to set legal limits on how much could be charged for goods and services. But these efforts were too little, too late. The damage was done. The trust in the monetary system was shattered, and you can't simply command people to trust something they know is worthless. The edict failed spectacularly, as merchants simply refused to sell their goods at the official low prices, creating massive shortages on the black market. The economic disease was too far advanced for a simple cure. So, the collapse of Roman currency wasn't caused by a single event, but by a slow, creeping disease of currency debasement. It was a long-term consequence of short-term thinking. Emperors chose the easy path of inflating the money supply to pay their bills, rather than making the hard choices of cutting spending or raising taxes. This story from 2,000 years ago serves as a powerful cautionary tale. It shows how a stable and trusted currency is the bedrock of a prosperous society, and how undermining that trust can lead to economic chaos, social unrest, and ultimately, the decline of even the mightiest empires. It is a lesson about the fundamental principles of money and value that is just as relevant today as it was in the streets of ancient Rome. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through history. I hope you found it as fascinating as I do. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the past. Let me know in the comments what other historical topics you'd like to see covered. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.